All right, Taylor. Do you mind telling me a little bit about how important networking was and kind of informational interviews in order to get into Stanford?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you the whole uh, shebang of how I actually got into Stanford from like realizing I wanted to go and how I got here. So at the beginning of my master's, I didn't really think I wanted to do a PhD, but then over the course of a few months into it, I realized, oh, I really like this higher level coursework, and research is really kind of speaking out to me. So um, one of the once I realized, okay, this lab at Stanford is where I really want to go. Um, I said, okay, Stanford is arguably one of the most competitive schools on the planet, so my application is going to have to be top notch if I want to get in. What's the way to do that? The thing that in academia that matters is publication. Publish or perish is the aphorism. So um, I thankfully, through my own good fortune, in my master's degree, I had the opportunity to publish a lot of papers. I was given a project that allowed me to just get a bunch of data, and that data would allow me to have probably 3 papers from the master's degree if I played my cards right. And so I realized, okay, step one, get a lot of data. So I focused on doing that. Second, I realized, okay, in the application, it's most important to have the papers published and not just submitted, because
Hmm.
a paper that's been in progress or submitted doesn't really mean anything. It's most important that's been accepted. So I decided, instead of applying, I started a master's in fall 2018. Instead of applying for PhD programs in fall 2019 to begin PhD in fall 2020, I decided to delay my applications and begin them in fall 2020 to start my PhD in fall 2021.
Hmm.
Because then that would ideally allow me to have my papers finished, published, and accepted by the time I was submitting my applications in
Hmm.
fall 2020. And so I basically structured my whole master's degree around that and said, okay, you know what, I'll have a gap year where I'll work ideally for, say, Pratt& Whitney, or that ended up falling through because of the pandemic, but, have something. And so I just committed to that plan. Um, then what I also did is, kind of at the end of my master's, I actually had a PhD offer from U of T, and it was interesting. It was attractive. So if I wasn't going to get into Stanford, it's like, this seems like a reasonably good option. So in weighing that decision, I actually reached out to my current supervisor at Stanford a year and a half before I ended up in his lab, saying, hey, here's my plan. Here's what I want to do. Here's what my background is, yada, yada, yada. And just asked him for, if my plan seemed reasonable and if he would likely accept me if all things went through. And so, of course, he couldn't say anything in writing that was actually give me an offer or anything, but he said, yeah, if you follow all these steps, it seems like you'd be a strong candidate for our lab. So that was great. Then every 3 months, basically, I just reached out to him and, gave him an update, said, okay, here's what's happened. I've submitted the papers. And I was also doing literature review, preparing myself for this PhD, because I was, first of all, interested in it, but second of all, just because I knew that I needed to have good questions and everything ready to go if I ever talked to this guy. And so later in the summer of 2020, I reached out to him and asked, hey, do you have any reading recommendations you would give? And
Hmm.
so he said, yeah, check out, first of all, this book, and then from like 1963, and this textbook that I just wrote on spectroscopy. And so I picked up both books, got one of them for $10 on Amazon, which is great, and actually ended up reading through the whole first book, and then read as much as I could through the spectroscopy book, even though it's highly technical and I missed a bunch of it. So anyways, I did my pre-reading, and then when it came time for PhD applications, I submitted an application, said, hey, done it. Again, just keep my foot in the door. And
Hmm.
then that paid huge dividends in February when, PhD admissions were happening, because I received an email from Stanford Mechanical Engineering saying, hey, you've been, this email is to inform you that we've notified all interview candidates, or all interview candidates have been interviewed. And if you're receiving this email, that means you weren't on that list. And so it was basically just like, thanks, but no thanks, you're not going to be here. And so I was like, okay,
Hmm.
well, what gives? I've been talking to this guy for over a year now. I think, I'm a very strong candidate. Everyone that I've been talking to, like my referees and everything, they said, yeah, you stand a great chance of getting in. So I sent my advisor an email saying, hey, I know I'm not entitled to anything. Like, of course, it was very nicely worded, but yeah, long and short of it was, hey, I know I'm not entitled to anything. But I've been in touch with you for the last year and a half. I think I'm a very strong candidate. I have X, Y, and Z, to my name. Am I correct in understanding that I will not be admitted, or is there something I can do to, better my position? So basically said, hey, I'll actually, my advisor's in his 80s. He's been at Stanford forever. He's has over 100 PhD graduates from his lab. So I think he has a little bit of pull in the department. So anyways, he pulled my application, reviewed it, and got back to me and said, hey, I'm confident you're Stanford material. I'll talk to the admissions committee and see what I can do. And so then the next day he asked me, hey, can you be free for an interview? And it was like 11 p.m. my time. So I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm in. So he grilled me with questions for about an hour. And thankfully, with all the pre-reading and everything, I was prepared and I kind of knew what I was talking about, or at least to the levels that could be expected. And the next day I had 3 other interviews with faculty from the admissions committee. So other like 3 top dogs in mechanical engineering that were just asking me questions. So it was pretty stressful. But anyways, then a week later, I get an email from my advisor and says, hey, I'd like to chat to let you know what's up. And so he said, hey, so I was actually too interested in his research for the department to actually give me a fellowship. There's 2 ways to be funded at Stanford. You can have a fellowship from the department, or you can have a research assistantship where your advisor pays for you. Mm-hmm. So I was too keenly interested in his research for the department to just fund me, because they end up dancing around. If you have a fellowship, you can go and try out different labs. So anyways, he said, you're going to be on an RA ship with me, but given that, I'm going to have to send you an offer letter a little bit later. So because like the fellowship students get the letters first. So anyways, I said, yeah, no, that's great. As long as I'm going to be in, I don't really care. And then I asked them a few more technical questions that were like, I asked them, hey, in this paper from like 1957, what caused this phenomenon? Is this still a problem? And is this why this happened? And so then that, I guess, made an impression, because then the next day I had an offer letter in my hand, and then that was it. So just reaching out and having that whole background is absolutely essential. Otherwise I wouldn't be here.